Hello. The other day I made a video called Is FragPunk another generic FPS game? And the reception on that video was very mixed. I think it's about 60-40 on the like ratio. And that coincides with the reviews of the game. It's very split. It seems like this game has its target audience that it has well and truly met. But then there's the other people that just don't gel with it whatsoever. I decided to stick through and play more than the initial 30 minutes I'd played after making my video. And as time went on, I started to enjoy the game more, to the point now I've played just over about 2 hours of the game. And I'll probably play it some more. Maybe by the time the playtest ends, I'll end up playing 4 or 5 hours of it, because I do enjoy the game. Which some people who watched my first video might be surprised to hear if they've made their way to this video as well. I do still have some issues with the game that I think need to be addressed. However, I do think that perseverance and pushing through that initial learning curve, when you do inevitably get stomped in your first game by people that have 20 hours on the playtest, because there is no skill-based matchmaking, doing that, pushing through is vital in finding out if you do enjoy the game. At service level, I said in my previous video, the team deathmatch basics strip everything back, which is just, point and shoot, move, jump. That feels great, and I think that is the key, that's the core element to any shooter game, is making sure that the core gameplay alone feels fun. The bit that I struggled with was the learning, which was the shard cards and the abilities that all the different heroes have and stuff like that, which I think that some other people will too, and that's why some negative reviews have been left. You see, I think this game is actually targeted towards people kind of like me, that are a bit older and will play a game for a few hours, rather than just the first 20-30 minutes, and if they get destroyed, they don't play again. But the reality that I was trying to address in my initial video, which some people just seemed extremely reluctant to hear out, was that the initial 30 minutes of a player onboarding is absolutely vital in player acquisition. I would know. I've worked on video games. I've released video games. I think some people didn't really, they didn't really know this, weren't aware of this. The median playtime for my own game at one stage was 20 minutes, and I had to address why that was a thing. I know exactly, how some devs feel, and how some players feel. I've been on both sides. So, player acquisition, the initial 30 minutes, and making sure somebody enjoys your game as quickly as possible is very, very important, and that's the thing that I think this game struggles to do. I think it is much more enjoyable when you start to slowly master the mechanics and the shard cards and the heroes, and just learn. It gets better over time, but we live in a gaming industry where you can't ask people to spend 3 or 4 hours on your game to find out they enjoy it, because there's so many free alternatives on the market. Anyway, that aside, once you do push through, the game is enjoyable. As I said, gunplay, good, visuals, great. Once you start learning the shard cards and learning which ones you should pick and how to coordinate with your teammates and things, it is very enjoyable. Personally, I've been enjoying using a mixture of the shotgun and the AR. And the hero I've been using most is HollowPoint. I like the, whatever it's called, I forget the name of it, but the, the cloud wall that you send forward, and for the next 7 seconds or so, this cloud wall shield thing pushes forward and reveals any enemies in its path. Very useful because it blocks lines of sight. You can push forward behind it, and it's a good strategy. It's been working well for me. So yeah, the game is very enjoyable when you get to grips with all these characters, what they can do, and you start learning. You start figuring out, who you are as a player, and what you prefer to use, and how you can contribute to a team by picking a certain character and certain weapons, etc. It is enjoyable. So yeah, I just think that there's still some issues with it, which are easy to address. And I think some people are still going to be angry at me for saying this. Some people are like, no, the game is perfect. It should release now. It's so good. Like, the game at surface level is good. Yeah, it's enjoyable when you play it, but there's still some issues. Movement still feels incredibly slow, and the game advertises itself as a fast-paced shooter. There's only one character, I believe, that can do things like faster movement speed and sliding. And it is the shotgun character. I forget the name. But I think that is how like every character should move. The game just feels like you're moving at a snail's pace, unless you have the shard card, which gives you 15% movement speed increase, which actually I think in every single game I played, people went for that one if it was available. So it seems like a lot of people agree. The game in general and movement speed wise just feels incredibly slow. Even sprinting, you only seem to gain like a 5 or 10% boost in movement speed. I would like to see the movement speed be buffed by about 15% for the base, and then you gain an extra 10 or 15 for sprinting on top of that. It doesn't have to be as fast as something like an Apex or Halo or whatever. Just a little bit faster than what it is now would be nice, because it just does feel sluggish and weird. But I'd say that is like my biggest gripe with the game. The only other thing is that some of the maps seem a bit imbalanced. There are some areas that are really prone to spawn camping, and that is a big issue in this game so far. The amount of times I get killed off spawn is very frustrating. However, I do it to the other enemy team as well. You know, it works both ways. It can be quite enjoyable. If you kill 3 people off spawn, you feel good about yourself. But I also know how annoying it is to be on the receiving end of that. So I do think spawn killing needs to be addressed. The way that it's addressed now is a really old-fashioned way of doing things, and it's giving a player invulnerability for the first, I think, 3 seconds when they spawn. That is a very, very old way of doing spawn protection. These days, usually you would just have a safe spawning system where people spawn in the safest area, so the area where enemies are least present and closest to your teammates as possible, so you don't get immediately shot when you spawn. But the way that this game is designed, and having a specific spawn area, a little hut that you spawn in, you can't really do that. So I guess they've done the best they can with what they have. But yeah, I think it still needs to be addressed a little bit. That it is very frustrating. But besides those two things, you know, the movement and the spawn camping and maps being a little bit imbalanced, the core game, the guns, they feel great. The game is pretty much bug-free. I haven't encountered any bugs myself, other than I think one button not working in the menus, which is very minimal. And yeah, like the game, it feels good, it plays good. It's fun, which is key, so I do enjoy it, and I think they can slot themselves into the market. I do think this will live. I don't think it will be the biggest game in the world. I think it will just survive as a mid-tier game that captures the audience it's going for, and potentially, if they make the right decisions, some people that are new to this genre, such as myself, really. I don't play many games like this. The only game that I played recently that I can compare to this would be something like X-Defiant, which is like very surface level similar because it's a class-based shooter. The game does feel quite polished as well. As I said, it's kind of bug-free at the moment, but like things like the animations and the visuals all look great. They look really polished, so that's good. And I think that every single weapon like feels good to use. You know, they've got the most important things down. I think they just need to do some balancing changes and you know, fix whatever small bugs are there, like I mentioned, a button not working or so, and then it's a good game. I mean, the player count alone suggests that a lot of people are enjoying it. Right now, as I'm making this, there's 14,000 people playing, which is pretty big. I think the peak is like 20k or more. So, you know, these are player numbers that are doing better than some of the other games already released that are quite similar. So, like I said, I do think when it releases, it will slot itself into the market as like that mid-tier range. Maybe it will get 20 to 30,000 players concurrent, which is nothing to smirk at. You know, it is good. One thing I do really want to compliment this game on, and I've just remembered to add this in at the end here, is how unique it handles a tiebreaker situation. If the score to win is 7 and the current score in game is 3-3, you're tied up, the final round is a duel where everyone will 1v1 each other, and it's like a best of series style thing. You know, there's 5 players on your team. If you win 3 of the rounds, you've won. and it's like really tense. I played one and I actually got the round winning kill, and like it felt really good to play. It was so like, it was stressful and nerve-wracking leading up to it, watching my teammates win all their rounds and thinking, crap, I don't want to be the one that loses a round. And then I played it, I got my kill, I won the game for the team. It felt great, and I think that is a really unique way to handle tiebreaker situations, and yeah, it's a great thing to put into the game. You can also play that as its own mode as well, which I think is also good. Just actually to touch on game modes, I think that every game mode is good besides one. There's one which is like capture the orb or something. That one plays very weird, but the dual TDM and the shard card modes are really fun to play. Just the capture mode for me is like so different to what I'm used to in the capture the object style mode. Obviously the most common being a capture the flag. In FragPunk you have to capture an orb and then bring it back to your own base, and it just feels super weird because it's so easy to do. I played it and must have captured this same orb and brought it back to my base like 5 or 6 times. Like, it just feels super easy because you don't need to push through any enemies to do it. Like, you get to the orb, there's a bit of a battle for the orb because it's in the middle of the map. If you outslay the enemy team, you can pick up the orb, run it back to base completely safe, and it's then rinse and repeat of that kind of process over and over again. It just felt a bit strange to me. But every other game mode, great. So, you know, one being meh out of like 5 or something is pretty good going. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it so far. I'm not the most like, you know, I haven't mastered it, you know, I don't have FragPunk mastery, I don't know every single character and know the names of all of their abilities and know what every single shard card does, etc. That's going to take hours upon hours upon hours to learn. But I do think that the game would be thoroughly enjoyable for someone who does put that time in and does learn everything that the game has to offer. It is enjoyable for me after only playing, like I said, about maybe 2 to 3 hours of the game so far. So yeah, that's it. I hope some people that watched the initial video have watched this one and are satisfied that I have put more time in and that I have you know, started to enjoy the game a little more. And I hope people can also be accepting that I can enjoy the game and have criticisms at the same time. I think a lot of people struggle in today's gaming world to accept that. It's either you love or you hate something, there's no in between. Well, no, this is very much in between. I enjoy the game, but there are some issues which I think need to be addressed. So, yeah, that's it. Overall, if I was to give this like a rating so far, I'd give this like a 7.5 out of 10. Maybe if I play it for an hour or 2 more, I'd give it an 8, which isn't a bad rating. So yeah. Anyway, this will be the last FragPunk video I make until the full release probably. So I'll see you then.